What if I told you the real reason Abraham Lincoln was assassinated had to do with more than just the South? The focus was not American money, Rothschild, and banking money. This is part 2 of how the chessboard was played, which affects your life today, and the continuation of events throughout history influenced by the Rothschilds. We pick up in the Americas. Newly elected President Lincoln is continuing the struggle of his predecessors. After France breached the Monroe Doctrine, the policy that warned Europe not to interfere with Western affairs, the British followed with 11,000 soldiers. The Rothschilds then instructed American banks to offer loans at 24% to 36% interest. Why would they want to help the very nation they set out to take over? Imagine if you were drowning in debt, and your only option was a payday loan with 36% interest. That's what Lincoln faced from global banks during the Civil War. Having rebuffed the predatory terms of international bankers, Lincoln faced a formidable challenge: how to fund a devastating war without surrendering the nation's economic sovereignty. He saw the trap being laid. He knew that a nation burdened by such crippling debt would never truly be sovereign. President Lincoln had to figure out how to finance the war. He came to that solution with Colonel Dick Taylor. The answer came not from European finance but from within America itself. As Lincoln asked the colonel who was in charge of financing the war how they would manage, he states, "Why, Lincoln, that is easy. Just get Congress to pass a bill authorizing the printing of full legal tender treasury notes, and pay your soldiers with them, and go ahead and win your war with them also." President Lincoln had doubt as to whether the people would accept the notes. Colonel Taylor replied, "The people or anyone else will not have any choice in the matter if you make them full legal tender. They will have the full sanction of the government and be just as good as money, as Congress is given the express right by the Constitution." If you're still tuned in, you care about getting to the truth. Like and subscribe for more content. Lincoln came to realize that by issuing debt-free greenbacks, the government avoided the compounding burden of interest payments that would have accompanied loans from private bankers. In 1862, President Lincoln prints $450 million worth of American currency. These are at no interest. He would be the last president to issue debt-free United States notes. This saving, Lincoln understood, ultimately translated into a lesser burden on the taxpayers, the ordinary citizens of the Republic, who would otherwise foot the bill for banker profits. He believed that a nation that controlled its own currency controlled its own destiny. His commitment to this system was not just a wartime measure, it was a philosophical stance on the very nature of money and the role of government. Relating to this, he states, "The government should create, issue, and circulate all the currency and credit needed to satisfy the spending power of the government and the buying power of consumers." The privilege of creating and issuing money is not only the supreme prerogative of government, but it is in the government's greatest creative opportunity. By the adoption of these principles, the taxpayers will be saved immense sums of interest. Money will cease to be master and become the servant of humanity. He goes on to say, "We gave the people of this republic the greatest blessing they ever had, their own paper money to pay their own debts." This bold American experiment in sovereign currency sent shockwaves through the counting houses and chancelleries of the old world. That very same year, the Time of London illustrates who's pulling the strings. It publishes the following: "If that mischievous financial policy, which had its origin in the North American Republic, should become indurated down to a fixture, then that government will furnish its own money without cost. It will pay off debts and be without a debt. It will have all the money necessary to carry on its commerce." It continues to say, "It will become prosperous beyond precedent in the history of civilized governments of the world. The brains and the wealth of all countries will go to North America. That government must be destroyed, or it will destroy every monarchy on the globe." A document from a Rothschild-controlled bank, the Bank of England, refers as to why Lincoln's debt-free money, the greenback, had to be stopped. It says, "Slavery is likely to be abolished by the war power and chattel slavery destroyed. This I and my European friends are glad of, for slavery is but the owning of labor, and carries with it the care of laborers, while the European plan, led by England, is that capital shall control labor by controlling wages. This can be done by controlling the money. The great debt that capitalists will see to it is made out of war. must be used as a means to control the volume of money. To accomplish this, the bonds must be as a banking basis. We are now awaiting for the Secretary of the Treasury to make this recommendation to Congress. It will not do to allow the greenback, as it is called, to circulate as money any length of time, as we cannot control that. Arriving at 1863, President Lincoln finds out that Tsar of Russia, Alexander II, is also having troubles with the Rothschilds, as they have attempted to set up a central bank in Russia to no avail. They then form an alliance of sorts. Lincoln and Alexander II, that is England or France, were to interfere in the American Civil War. Russia would consider it a declaration of war. Tsar Alexander II sends part of his Pacific Fleet to San Francisco and New York to show that his seriousness in the matter. While this is going on, Rothschild uses John D. Rockefeller to form an oil business in America, which winds up taking over the competition. The Tsar's support demonstrated that the struggle for economic sovereignty was not unique to America. Other nations also felt the pressure of an increasingly powerful global financial elite. In 1864, President Lincoln makes a statement to Congress that states, "I have two great enemies, the Southern Army in front of me, and the financial institutions in the rear. Of the two, the one in my rear is my greatest foe." Abraham Lincoln was a man under no illusions about the forces he confronted. The greenback policy was a direct challenge to this European plan, and the international financial powers were determined to see it extinguished before its success could inspire other nations. 41 days after his inauguration, President Lincoln is shot by John Wilkes Booth. While Booth was portrayed as a Confederate fanatic, suspicions about deeper motives quickly surfaced. 70 years later, Booth's granddaughter Izola Forrester publishes a book, This One Mad Act. In the book, she claims that Booth was put up to the assassination by powerful interests in Europe. In 1934, allegations that international bankers were responsible for Lincoln's assassination would be published in the Canadian House of Commons. The person who revealed this was Canadian attorney Gerald G. McGeer. He had obtained evidence deleted from the public record provided to him by Secret Service agents at the trial of Booth. McGeer's speech was published in the Vancouver Sun, dated the 2nd of May 1934, which states, "Abraham Lincoln, the murdered emancipator of the Souths, was assassinated through the machinations of a group representative of the international bankers who feared the United States President's national credit ambitions. There were only one group in the world at that time who had any reason to desire the death of Lincoln. They were the men opposed to his national currency program and who had fought the whole Civil War on his policy of greenback currency." It sounds crazy, right? But the documents exist. Within a mere 8 years of Lincoln's assassination, a series of legislative maneuvers fundamentally altered the American monetary landscape. Lincoln was more than an emancipator, he was a financial innovator. Although there were many Americans who did not like Lincoln, his revolutionary progress for the country as a whole was undeniable. The Rothschilds also wanted to put America on the gold standard. This was in direct opposition of Lincoln's policy of issuing greenbacks, based solely on the good faith and credit of the United States. Decades later, in a stunning speech to the Canadian House of Commons on May 2, 1934, attorney Gerald G. McGeer explicitly accused international bankers of orchestrating Lincoln's murder. McGeer went on to say in the Vancouver Sun, "They were the men interested in the establishment of the gold standard and the right of the bankers to manage the currency and credit of every nation in the world." With Lincoln out of the way, they were able to proceed with that plan and did proceed with it in the United States. Within 8 years after Lincoln's assassination, silver was demonetized and the gold standard system set up in the United States. The gold standard effectively ended the era of greenbacks as a significant, independent form of currency, forcing the government to rely more heavily on bank-issued notes backed by government bonds, precisely the system the bankers desired, as it ensured a steady stream of interest payments from the taxpayers. The dream of a debt-free money system created by the government for the benefit of its people began to fade, replaced by a system that would once again enrich private bankers through the mechanism of national debt. A system long favored by international bankers, as it limited the currency supply to the availability of gold, a commodity they largely controlled or could influence. With Abraham Lincoln's death, a powerful voice for monetary reform and national economic sovereignty was silenced. Introducing another influential figure in the U.S. during the same time period, Albert Pike. He was a general and attorney. In 1871, he was enticed into the Illuminati by Giuseppe Mazzini, finishes his blueprint for 3 world wars and other forms of revolution. The great conspiracy details are as follows. The First World War is to be fought to destroy the Tsar of Russia, as promised by Nathan Meyer Rothschild in 1815. The Tsar is to be replaced with communism, in which a function of it will be used to attack religions, predominantly Christianity. The Second World War is to be used to foment controversy between fascism and political Zionism, with the oppression of Jews in Germany. To be used to destroy fascism, which the Rothschilds created, and increase power of political Zionism. The Third World War is to be played out by stirring up hatred in the Muslim world for the purpose of playing the Islamic world and the political Zionists off against one another. As this is going on, the remaining nations would be forced to fight themselves into a state of mental, physical, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. Pike was the most powerful Freemason in America. Among his influence, he was also elected as Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry's Southern Jurisdiction in 1859. He writes a letter on August 15, 1871 to Giuseppe and says, "We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a great social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to all nations the effect of absolute atheism, the origins of savagery and of most bloody turmoil. Everywhere, the people will be forced to defend themselves against the world of minority of the world revolutionaries, and will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitudes disillusioned with Christianity, whose spirits will be from that moment without direction and leadership, and anxious for an ideal, but without knowledge where to send its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer brought finally out into public view. A manifestation which will result from general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. A conspiracy is just that, a conspiracy. But the all too familiar storylines gives one pause to think twice, especially if we are talking about a period of over 150 years. If that hasn't begun to blow your mind the following May. He published a book named Morals and Dogma of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. He candidly states, "The true name of Satan, the Kabbalists say, is that of Yahweh reversed, for Satan is not a black god, but the negation of God. For the initiates, this is not a person but a force created for good, but which served for its evil. It is the instrument of liberty and free will. Lucifer, the light-bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light, and with its splendors intolerable blinds feeble, sensual, or selfish souls? Doubt it not." Pike goes on to claim in his book that Freemasonry is a religion based on the philosophy found in the Kabbalah. Want to go deeper? Next episode uncovers more unknown truths, sourced by historical accounts and documents. Tune in to part 3.